Prologue. Emilio Varelli was a bastard. He strutted across the rugby field like he owned the world, and every glance he threw my way reminded me that, in his eyes, I was nothing. I was tired of it. Tired of being shoved aside. Tired of being judged for who I was. Tired of the way he made my life hell. This was war. Every practice, every drill, every brutal tackle was a battle. Every smirk, every shove, every careless word was a challenge, and I was determined to win. My father left us when I was a kid, and my mom was too high on prescription medication to even know what day it was. I was the only hope for my family. Rugby was everything to me, and he was trying to take it away. Then one night, he cornered me in the equipment closet. His lips crushed against mine, fierce and desperate, and for a moment, the war between us disappeared. My heart screamed to pull away, but every part of me betrayed me. Too bad I hated him. Too bad I'd been sent to destroy him. Too bad I couldn't resist him. Chapter 1. Gabriele. 6 months later. Vancouver, British Columbia. I didn't like the cold here. Not just the sharp bite in the air, but the wetness, like a dampness that clung to your skin and seeped into your bones, refusing to let go. The bus dropped us off near the Pacific Ridge Rugby Academy, a state-of-the-art training facility nestled just outside Vancouver, where the best Olympic rugby players in Canada came to sharpen their skills before heading to big events like the HSBC Canada Sevens. I carried my duffel bag down cracked sidewalks slick with grime and rain, the fading sun struggling to cut through heavy clouds. The crowd noise pulsed through the glass doors like an electric current, buzzing with promise. But all I felt was the weight of expectation pressing down on me. I should have been thrilled. New school, full-ride scholarship, a shot at something bigger. Mom even remembered my lunch today, slipped a few bucks in my pocket for the laundromat. That was enough to make it a good day. But most days, I wasn't so lucky. Mom forgot her meds more often than not. She fed me only when she remembered I existed. I learned early how to fend for myself. And if Dad hadn't left us when I was 10, maybe it wouldn't hurt so much. Maybe I wouldn't be so used to counting on no one. But what does matter? What always mattered is rugby. And today, rugby brought me here. North Shore Academy, home of the Wolves. Not just any team. The best in the country. Half of them have already signed Olympic development contracts. 3 of them played for the U20 national team last summer. These guys don't just play, they dominate. Their games get streamed like pro matches, and their captain, Emilio Varelli, a legend before he even graduated. And now I'm walking into their locker room like I belong here. But I probably don't. I'm about a head shorter than all the other guys, with fair skin and dirty blonde hair. And the second I walk in, I see the guys freeze. It's not like I'm not used to being the new guy, but being the new guy on a team heading for the Olympics hits different. "Where's Rocco?" someone whispered, nudging another guy's arm who shrugged. I keep my gaze straight and headed toward the locker that seems available. I open it only for it to be slammed shut. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" It was the kind of scent that didn't just cling to your clothes, but burned itself into your memory, impossible to shake. I twisted under his elbow, breath catching in my throat. "Get off me!" He shoved me away, sudden and rough, and I stumbled forward, catching myself on the bench before I could hit the ground. The room fell into a heavy silence. No one laughed, no one moved. They all just stood there, watching, as if waiting for whatever would come next. "Gavin, that's enough." The big guy Gavin froze. The voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight, each word solid and unshakable, like a command carved in stone. He stepped back with a glare, jaw tight, and didn't bother to argue or even mutter a word. That's when I saw him, the one who spoke. His dark hair fell over his brow, arms folded across a chest built like a fortress. He was broad, imposing, and carried a calmness that somehow felt more dangerous than Gavin's temper. Emilio Varelli, captain of the North Shore Wolves. His eyes pinned me where I stand. "Walker, right?" My throat went dry. "Yeah." "That's not your locker." I gathered that. Something flickers in his expression. Humor? Disgust? I can't tell. "Use the one next to mine. No one touches that row but starters." He turned and walked away without waiting for a thank you. And just like that, the room exhaled again. But me? I can't breathe at all. I put my stuff away, face and neck burning. Gavin the gorilla didn't hold back, but I knew letting the guys screw with me in the beginning was going to be a big mistake. Emilio shows me to my locker, but his gaze doesn't leave mine. He's taller than he looks in the magazines, leaner, tribal tattoos weaving up and down his arm that make him look more of a douche than he normally is. I kept my mouth shut though, putting my stuff away. My goal was to make it to the HSBC Canada Sevens qualifier, and beyond to the Olympics. For me it wasn't just about making it there, it was about proving everyone who doubted me wrong. Because to them, I was always just the abandoned kid. My father had left us when I was little, running off without a word, and leaving behind a pile of debts that crushed my mom. I hoped, every bitter day, that he was burning in hell for what he did, abandoning us like we meant nothing. That anger fueled me, pushed me harder every time I thought about giving up. The guys were watching me too, but I've trained myself not to see them as humans, but as animals. Gavin, the gorilla, the one who spoke earlier, looks like a gazelle. The other in the far right, an armadillo. "Ah," a voice said, stepping into the room. "I see you've gotten settled. Gabriele, was it?" Gavin must have introduced himself. Everyone laughed, but nearly getting choked out on my first day doesn't seem funny to me. "I'm Coach Norvac, and for the next 6 months I'll be your mother, your father, your sister, your aunt, and your girlfriend," he grinned. All teeth. I tend to dissociate often, so if I had to think of an animal, I'd call him a hyena, lean and wiry, like someone who's always hungry, smiling too wide, laughing at things that aren't funny. The kind of predator that doesn't hunt alone. As if on cue, the door creaked open again, and in walked someone completely different. Younger, bigger, built like he could bench press the stadium and still ask for more. "Assistant Coach Tyrell," he said. His voice was deep like thunder rolling in over a dry field. Calm, but promising something violent beneath. "Call me Coach T. Everyone does." He had shoulders like stacked concrete slabs, arms inked from wrist to elbow in blocky blackwork tattoos. His skin was dark, rich brown, his jaw carved and clean. And his eyes? They didn't smile, even when his mouth did. If Norvac was a hyena, Tyrell was a panther. Silent, watching, deadly. He didn't bother with jokes or speeches. Just looked at us, one by one, until his gaze landed on me and lingered, just a second too long. "Orientation's over," he said. "Gear up." I started putting on my gear, but I overheard the other guys whispering. "What the hell, man? What happened to Rocco?" "He's not here, obviously. Stop whining and gear up," the gorilla spat. "No tardiness, ladies," Coach Norvac said, then walked over to me. "How are you settling in?" "Pretty good," I lied. "Come see me after." You share a dorm room with Emilio, which isn't normally how it's done, but it was the only room available. Training starts at 6 a.m., then practice after that. Scrimmage. The HSBC Canada Sevens qualifier isn't just another match. It was the gatekeeper to everything we've worked for. We live, eat, and breathe rugby here. Understood? "Yes, sir," I clipped. "And I don't like tardiness," Coach Norvac said, pointing a finger in my face. "If you're tardy, I'll rip you a new one." "Sounds pleasant," I muttered, and a few of the other guys chuckled. "Smart ass," he snorted. "I don't like smart asses. Gear up." I finished putting on my stuff, strapping in and adjusting the jersey that still smelled like someone else's sweat. I was lacing my cleats when Emilio's eyes locked on mine. "You think you're ready to wear this jersey?" he asked. I frowned, not sure what he meant. "I have to be." He smirked. "This isn't for show-offs. It's blood, sweat, and something you can't fake. You'll sink or burn. Which will it be, Walker?" Once we were finished dressing, I noticed Emilio lingering by the door, helmet in hand. There was something about him I couldn't place. Something still, but alert, like his mind was always 3 steps ahead. He jerked his chin at me. "You coming?" I grabbed my ball and followed him out. The sun hit us hard, bouncing off the turf as we stepped onto the field. The others trailed behind, quieter now. "You're taking Rocco's old spot," Emilio said as we walked. I blinked. What happened to him? He didn't answer, just kept walking, tossing the ball up and catching it like he hadn't heard me at all. The guys spread out across the field like it was second nature. Everyone knew where they belonged. Emilio stood at inside center, number 12. He commanded the back line like he'd been born into it, and maybe he had. 3-time national MVP, fastest passing speed in the league, and a tackle record that made grown men hesitate before stepping in his path. He'd played internationally before he turned 19. People called him a prodigy, a monster, a legend. I usually assign animals to people, but for him, I couldn't think of one for some reason. I took fly half, Rocco's old spot. It was obvious. He was the one who used to run the field alongside Emilio, the guy who set the rhythm, made the calls, and fed the captain the ball. The air around us was thick with expectation. We started off easy, with quick passes and light footwork drills. I stayed focused. My passes landed clean, and my movements fell right in sync with the line's rhythm. For a moment, it felt like I truly belonged. Then we shifted into scrimmage formation. Emilio didn't say a word, just glanced at Coach T, nodded once, and the whistle blew. Game on. The first few plays, everything clicked. I read the defense, adjusted the line, made clean breaks. The others followed. Even Gavin, though he scowled the entire time. I started to believe I could survive this. And then I saw Emilio break from the line, coming straight for me. Not a drill, not a play, just him, at full freaking speed. I barely had time to brace before he slammed into me. My ribs caved under the hit. The world snapped sideways. I hit the ground so hard I saw stars, black and white blotches clouding my vision. The sky above me spun. Then someone leaned over me, grinning through his mouthguard. Gavin. "Oh yeah," he said, smug. Did I mention? Rocco was Emilio's best friend. He laughed low and pushed off, stalking back to the others like he owned the place. Emilio stood a few feet away, his uniform clinging like a second skin. The tight shorts stretched over powerful thighs, every muscle hardened from years of training. His jersey hugged wide shoulders built to shrug off tackles, tapering to narrow hips. Every inch of him was speed and power wrapped in one. There was something about the way he moved, how he watched, how the others seemed to fall in line without question. Not quite a lion, too silent for that. Not a wolf, too controlled, too poised. It took hitting the ground to realize exactly what he was. Emilio Varelli wasn't just a man. He was a leopard. I stayed down for a moment, ribs burning and vision swimming as I fought to steady my breath. That tackle? No accident. He'd done it on purpose, and not a single muscle twitched on Coach Norvak's face. Instead, from the sidelines, he shouted, "Buck up, Walker!" What kind of hell was this place? Summoning every ounce of strength, I pushed myself up, my hand shaking as it pressed into the rough turf beneath me. When I looked back, Emilio was already watching, his body taut, ready to strike again at the first sign of weakness. And in that moment, I wondered. Did he already know the real reason I was here?
Chapter 2. Emilio. He doesn't belong here. I gritted my teeth, watching the new guy prance around in Rocco's spot like it wasn't carved out for him, like it hadn't been earned. That position wasn't just part of the formation, it was ours. I'm inside center, number 12. The one who cuts through the noise, who keeps the line tight and the pace tighter. But Rocco was the one who read my mind before the ball ever left my hands. Now he's stuck in a hospital bed with 1,000 tubes coming out of his face like a freaking octopus. And they expect me to just sync with some kid I've never seen before? Not a chance. I snorted when he fumbled the ball, my lip twisting into a sneer. Gavin stepped up to me, his bald head gleaming in the light. "Are you going to do something about this?" he spat. I was tempted to brush him off, but instead I side-eyed him, and he backed down immediately. Power screams louder than words ever could. "No, let me handle it. Rocco will be back in no time." "You better not be playing games, Emilio," he huffed, stepping closer. And although he was a head taller than me and wider, I was used to Gavin's games on and off the field. He played loose head prop, number 1, Big body, bigger mouth, all muscle, no strategy. I turned my attention back to the field, jaw tightening. Gabriele was running drills, like he owned the place, fumbling passes, adjusting his stance like he thought it mattered, like we didn't all see the difference. My hatred simmered just beneath the surface. He thinks I don't know who he is. He's wrong. And once the Varellis find out he's here, pretending taking Rocco's place, all hell will break loose. Rocco was supposed to play, not him. Coach blew the final whistle. That's it for today. Hit the showers. We're back at it before sunrise. I ripped off my helmet and watched Gabriele jog off the field, his footsteps too light, too fast, like he didn't just fumble his way through a legacy that wasn't his. Coach Norvak caught my eye. Emilio, show your new roommate to the dorms. My stomach twisted. Roommate. I didn't move right away. Just stared at the spot where Rocco should have been. Then I grabbed my bag and stalked toward the gates without looking back. Gabriele scrambled to catch up. He didn't say anything, and neither did I. I walked several steps ahead, not caring that his short ass could barely keep up. Because damn, he was short. Fly half, of course. The smallest guy on the team, always trying to prove he could control the game without getting flattened in it. But what the hell were they feeding the players over at North End? He was compact as hell, narrow-waisted like someone took a regular-sized guy and squeezed the sides in, all lean muscle and twitchy energy. Irritating to look at. Even more irritating knowing he'd be sleeping in the same room Rocco used to. But as irritating as he was freaking hot. Blonde, medium-length hair, perfect for running my fingers through. Heart-shaped lips that begged to be kissed, and a smart-ass mouth that was doing things to me. My sudden and explosive attraction to him was grating on my last nerve. I kept walking, jaw clenched, fists tighter. I didn't care how quiet he stayed. I didn't care how hard he tried to play humble. He didn't belong here, and no matter what coach or the board said, I wasn't going to let him forget that. We crossed the lot in silence, the late sun casting long shadows over the complex. The dorms were part of a sprawling, state-of-the-art facility built for athletes who were supposed to become legends. Everything was polished steel and sleek glass, the kind of place designed to look like money and bleed discipline. Beyond the gates was the training ground. 3 fields with hybrid turf, cold tubs, cryo chambers, altitude rooms, motion tracking tech. No excuses here, just performance, just results. And somehow, he made it past the front door. I scanned my badge and led him into the north wing, where only the top players stayed. The ones with Olympic potential. The ones with futures that cost money to protect. My jaw locked tighter with every step. We stopped in front of room 208, my room, Rocco's room. I stepped inside, and the air hit different, emptier than it should have been. His side of the room was already cleared out, sheets replaced, closet empty. Even the box of frosted snowflakes he used to eat every morning. Gone. Just freaking gone. Gabriele walked in behind me and dumped his bag on the floor like he owned it. Then he just stood there, looking around. Every movement he made scraped across my nerves like sandpaper. The way he eyed the bed, like he was measuring it. The way he opened the small fridge and nodded like he was impressed. The way he reached for the blinds like this place was his. My fists clenched. He didn't belong here. Not in this room, not in this complex, not in this world. This was Rocco's space, our space. We built everything here on trust, sweat, and sacrifice. And now this twitchy little outsider with his too short frame and narrow waist thought he could walk in and breathe our air. He wasn't just a replacement. He was an insult. I turned away before I did something I'd regret, or something I wouldn't. We start practice at dawn, I muttered. Don't be late. Sure, hey, thanks for the... I slammed the door shut before he could finish it. For a second, I just stood there, back to the wall, breathing hard. Hating the world and everyone in it. Then, my phone buzzed. Aurelia. I let it go to voicemail. I don't know why she thought we were a thing. Just because her deep-throating game was epic didn't mean we were in a relationship. 10 seconds later, a text came through. "Party at Gavin's tonight. You in?" "Hell yeah," I texted back immediately. I headed to the showers and scrubbed that bad taste out of my mouth. Dressed in a black button-down, khakis, Rolex snug on my wrist, I was out the door before that brat could even get settled. Gavin Tatum lived in one of the richest houses on Lakeshore Drive. A sprawling mansion with waterfront views, 3 jet skis parked on the dock, and a driveway full of European cars his dad probably wrote off as training expenses. I jumped into my Bugatti and peeled out. By the time I arrived, the party was in full swing, music thumping, lights strobing across the backyard, and half the Olympic Prep Academy already buzzed on imported tequila. Aurelia was by the pool, surrounded by her swim squad from when she repped Poseidon Elite, one of the top feeder teams for the National Women's Division. I recognized a few of the others from Triton Core and Blue Crest Vortex, all of them with that swimmer build, tight cores, long limbs, like they were carved from water. I spotted my guys near the deck and walked over. "Northern Wolves," I hollered. Gavin looked up, grinning like the devil himself. We clasped hands, and he yanked me into a half hug before knocking his shoulder against mine. "Drink up, brother, the night is young," he shouted, already tossing me a cold one. I brought the beer to my lips, locking eyes with Aurelia across the pool. Her blonde hair fell in waves over her face, dark lashes framing ocean blue eyes. She wore a high-cut bikini that hugged her athletic body like it was stitched on wet. From 0 to 100 in half a second. Wonderful. This as just the distraction I needed. We were making out hard, stumbling over furniture, door frames, maybe a hallway table. I didn't know. I didn't care. I was too drunk, too far gone, and she was laughing, hair dripping, fingers tugging at my shirt. Her wet bikini stuck to her like a second skin, and I fumbled to peel it off, fingers clumsy. We crashed into a wall, or maybe it was a closet door, or a bathroom. Hell if I knew. Wait, she muttered, pulling back. I licked my lips, breathless, already working the buttons on my khakis, but she grabbed my wrist. "Emilio," she whispered. "Wait, I think we should talk." "Now," I almost said, but I could already feel the shift in the air. The buzz was thinning. "Sure," I muttered, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. "What's up?" She played with the buttons on my shirt, hesitating. "We've been doing this for a while, and what?" I said, already annoyed. She was ruining my one distraction from everything else going to hell. "I just want to know what we are." I almost laughed. What we are. Screw buddies. Friends with benefits. Nothing. I knew none of that would get me laid, so I reached for the easiest out. "Girl," I snorted, cocking my head. "You know what we are. Now come on." "I just feel," she cut in, moving away from my hands, "that you don't value me." My mood darkened instantly. "Value you," I repeated. "Yes, like all the girls. They say that you don't care about me." She bit her lip, and for a moment I could tell she was genuinely upset, but I wasn't in the mood for this crap. "Rocco is in the hospital." "I know that. So you know I haven't had time for anything," I snapped, louder now. "I know, but he'll get better." "You don't know that," I yelled. "You don't know anything, Aurelia. You sit in your little swim lane and play therapist when you don't even know what the hell you're talking about." Her face changed quickly. She scoffed, yanked her bikini top back into place, and straightened her shoulders. "You really are an asshole," she stormed out before I could even stop her. I stood there, breathing hard, pants half unbuttoned, shame crawling up the back of my throat. I didn't mean to go off like that. Didn't mean to treat her like garbage. But everything felt like it was falling apart, and I didn't know how to stop it. I went home pissed off and drunk. The dorm was quiet when I walked in, the kind of silence that felt like it was waiting to snap. I tossed my keys on the counter and headed to the kitchen, desperate for something cold, anything to drown out the night, to smother the burn boiling inside my chest. Then I saw it. I stopped dead. A pride flag magnet on the fridge. Small. Cheap. Just some crappy little thing you'd get in a dollar store bin, right next to the smiley faces and cat paws. But it lit something in me. It had to be Gabriele. No one else would have put that up. Not in here. Not like that. It was just sitting there, bright and loud and freaking smug. Like it knew something about me I hadn't even said out loud. Like it had been waiting for me to walk in so it could laugh in my face. I couldn't breathe. My chest rose and fell too fast. Too tight. Like I was underwater, and the surface was nowhere in sight. All those late nights I never talked about. Those videos I watched when I was too drunk to lie to myself. Aurelia's mouth, her body, her scent. It was all just noise, something to keep me distracted, to keep me normal. I could never commit, never settle, not with a girl, not with anyone. Because deep down, somewhere in the twisted mess of my head, I didn't want them. I wanted something else, something darker, something real, something us. I tore that magnet off the fridge and threw it halfway across the room. My knuckles slammed into the door instead of the metal, and pain exploded up my arm. "Damn it!" I hissed, stumbling back, chest heaving. I stared at the closed door across the hallway. His door. Gabriele. It was his fault. All of this. If he hadn't come here, if he hadn't walked into that locker room and looked like he belonged, like he fit where Rocco used to be, none of this would have happened. He wasn't just filling a spot. He was replacing something sacred. And when Rocco woke up, what would he think? Would he be okay with this guy taking his bed, his number, his place? I doubted it. Hell, I knew he wouldn't. I tossed the magnet into the trash like it was diseased and stormed into my room, slamming the door so hard the entire frame rattled and the walls vibrated. I stood in the dark, hands shaking, heart thudding in my ears like war drums. This guy had to go. And if I had anything to say about it, he'd be gone long before Rocco ever came back.
Chapter 3. Gabriele. They wanted me gone, especially Emilio. The way he looked at me like a predator, frothing at the mouth, licking his sharp teeth. I told myself I didn't care, that his stare didn't bother me, but that was a lie. It did. I found a machine off to the side and sat down, hoping to disappear into the background. I adjusted the seat, picked a weight, and tried to tell myself this was just another day, that I was just another player going through the motions. But the moment I settled in and started my first set, 3 guys nearby stood up and walked away quietly, deliberately, without even a glance in my direction. I kept my hands gripping the metal bars and stared hard at them, trying to push through the burn in my arms. But it wasn't just the effort that made them ache. It was everything else. Was I sweating too loud, taking up too much space? My throat tightened thinking of my mother, her once warm eyes now blank and distant, clouded by the haze of drugs. I knew she loved me deep down, but she was fighting just to stay afloat. My father had left us penniless. Sometimes rugby was all I had, so I needed this. I needed to stay, to prove something to everyone, but mostly to myself. The answer didn't matter. I just kept lifting. This wasn't new. I'd been here before, in rooms full of people who'd already decided I didn't deserve to be in them. Still, it hurt. I glanced up and caught him watching. Emilio stood across the gym, arms folded, back rigid, and eyes fixed on me like I was some puzzle he didn't like the look of. He didn't blink, didn't pretend to look away, just stared. I returned to my reps, jaw tight. I wasn't going to say anything about the magnet. I found it last night, crumpled in the trash like it was garbage. A little pride flag, cheap, probably from a clearance bin somewhere. But it meant something to me. I put it up. Thought it might make the place feel a little more like mine, a little less temporary. He must have torn it down. So yeah, great start. I was now officially the unwelcome queer kid in the Olympic training dorms. Not surprising. Places like this always had someone like him, the one everyone looked to without question, the one who could say nothing at all and still control the room. I didn't know what his deal was, but I could feel it pulsing under his skin. Some kind of resentment he hadn't figured out how to bury yet. I adjusted the weight stack, added more. My hands were shaking now, Not from exertion, but because everything in me wanted to scream. I wasn't here for their approval. I wasn't here to be liked. I was here to prove I could survive it, even if they all wanted me gone. Even if he did. Coach Norvac stepped into the training room with his usual no-nonsense stride. "All right, listen up, team," he said. "We're heading to the field for a full contact try. I want your heads in the game, clean hits, tight formations, and I swear, if I catch even a whisper of showboating, you'll be doing suicides till your legs fall off. Emilio, you're up." Emilio didn't even nod, just grabbed his gear and stalked out like he'd been waiting for this moment all damn day. I followed the others out, squinting as the sun hit us full force. The field was pristine, state-of-the-art, the kind you'd see on Olympic highlight reels. It felt too big, too professional. Like the whole place was watching me, waiting for me to screw up. And Emilio? He was leading the charge. From the moment we started drills, it was like I had a target on my back. Every time I touched the ball, he was there. Every tackle, I caught an extra shove. Every glance. Those dark eyes, zeroing in on me like I was something he meant to destroy. It wasn't subtle. He clipped my legs, elbowed my ribs, shoulder-checked me just out of bounds. One play, I hit the ground so hard I tasted blood in the back of my throat. The others didn't hide it. Laughter. Smirks. Looks passed between teammates like they'd been waiting for someone to take me down. I got back up, again and again, but my patience was cracking, fast. Then came the last straw. I made a clean pass, tried to run my route, but he veered off just to slam into me. No play, no whistle, just brute force. My shoulder hit the turf hard, and something in me snapped. I shoved up, heart pounding. "What the hell is your problem?" I yelled louder than I meant it to be. He didn't even pause. Emilio ran past, slow enough to make sure I heard him. "You are my problem," he said, not even bothering to look at me, then slammed his shoulder into mine again, just for good measure. I stumbled, caught myself, adrenaline buzzing in my veins like fire. "What the hell does that mean?" I called after him. "You don't even freaking know me." But maybe he did, the way he stared at me earlier. The magnet, the coldness. It wasn't just about me taking Rocco's place. This felt personal, too personal. The other guys stood around, some snickering, others just waiting for the next hit. To them, I was a curiosity, a test, a joke maybe. But Emilio wasn't laughing, and that's what unsettled me the most. Coach blew the whistle. "Break. 5 minutes. Get water before you pass out." I didn't move. I stood in place, hands shaking slightly as I watched Emilio across the field. The anger I could handle. The hits. The hostility. But the precision of it. The focus. The way he never looked surprised to see me. Like he already knew exactly who I was. My throat tightened. Does he know? Does he know who I am? What I've done? What I'm running from? The thought crawled under my skin like ice, and for the first time since I got here, I wasn't just angry. I was scared. I stood up slowly, brushing the dirt from my uniform with shaking hands. My legs felt heavier than they should have after a short scrimmage game. I walked to the benches, grabbed my water bottle, and drank deep, letting the coolness cut through the heat burning in my chest. My throat was dry, parched from more than just the sun. The fear, I didn't want to admit it, not even to myself, but it was there, creeping in behind my ribs. The idea of being found out, truly known, scared me more than anything else on this field. I squeezed my eyes shut. Now wasn't the time. I couldn't afford to spiral. Not here. Not with him watching. The Varellis weren't known for their compassion. They were known for vengeance and secrets that never stayed buried. Another shiver crawled through me, one I couldn't shake, no matter how much sun scorched my skin. I didn't dare look toward Emilio. Not now. Not after what just happened. I hadn't expected him to come after me so fast. So hard. It wasn't just territorial, it was personal. Too personal. And it was only going to get worse before it got better. I just had to last. Make it to the end. Get signed, get out, disappear. Then I could forget him. Forget all of it. Forget the name carved into my flesh, cut deep with a blade thick enough to sever bone. not just skin. It was always the same thing, always the same story. No matter where we ran, no matter which dusty town or cold city we ended up in, it never changed. Trouble had a way of finding us. Or maybe we carried it with us, stitched into the lining of our lives. But eventually, we stopped running. Not because we found peace, because my mother gave up. Somewhere along the way, numbing the pain became easier than fighting to live. Pills took the place of meals. Sleep replaced conversations. I still remember the last time I found her. Sprawled across the couch in the living room, body limp, mouth slack, eyes half open and staring at nothing. Glazed, empty, like she was looking at the ocean and waiting for it to swallow her whole. "Don't take it to heart," a voice cut in, snapping me out of it. "Emilio's an asshole." I blinked, refocusing. Someone was crouched near the bench, gathering up towels and half-empty water bottles like it was second nature. "I'm Caleb, by the way," he added, standing up. He was tall, at least a head taller than me, and built like someone who lived in a weight room but didn't feel the need to show it off. Everything about him was quiet confidence, broad shoulders under a faded training tee, veins along his forearms that stood out when he moved, and his face. Yeah, he was handsome. Too handsome. Dark brown eyes, a little sunburn along his cheekbones, and that unruly curl of hair falling just above his brow. The kind of guy who looked like he belonged on every team poster but didn't seem to care. I stared too long. He smirked like he noticed. When I finally looked away, I caught it. The resemblance. Strong jaw. Piercing stare. That same stillness beneath the surface like he could explode at any moment. "You look just like my father," he said, almost bored. "Yeah." I blinked again. "No kidding." I turned to look across the field. Sure enough, Coach Novak was still yelling at Gavin, his face turning shades of red I didn't know were humanly possible. Gavin looked like he was trying not to laugh. Caleb rolled his eyes. He's always like that. Honestly, it's kind of soothing once you get used to it. I let out a dry chuckle, the sound catching in my throat. I didn't want to notice him like that. I had enough on my plate without throwing an inconvenient attraction into the mix. But there he was, standing in the sun, smirking like he knew something I didn't. And I hated that I was noticing anything at all. I swallowed hard and looked away, trying to blink the heat out of my eyes. "A word of advice," Caleb said, stepping in a little closer. "Don't let them see how much it gets to you. If they do, they'll never let up." "And if it does?" I asked. He shrugged like it was nothing, already turning away. "Then do what the rest of us do," he said over his shoulder, a grin tugging at his mouth. "Play." He jogged back toward the field, leaving those words hanging in the air like smoke. Play. As if that was all it took. As if this game wasn't built on secrets and violence and loyalty to the wrong names. But he wasn't wrong, because no matter how badly Emilio hated me, no matter how close I came to breaking, I couldn't let him see it. I couldn't risk him finding out who I really was, or what I was doing here, or that I hadn't just taken Rocco's place. I'd made sure it was empty, and that was no accident.
Chapter 4. Emilio. They always stared. The moment I pushed through the hospital doors, it was like the entire world hit pause, like someone had pressed a remote, and every movement in the lobby froze mid-breath. A nurse halfway through scribbling something dropped her pen. It clattered against the counter, rolling out of sight. A little kid in a wheelchair turned his head and pointed like he'd just spotted a celebrity in the wild. Even the security guard, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, gave me a double take before glancing away again. North Shore Wolves, stitched in bright gold across the back of my varsity jacket, caught the light with every step I took. The sleeves were black and crimson, broken in from years of wear, the collar popped high, my hands buried in my pockets like I owned the place. I'd been here before. Not this hospital, but this moment, where the gawking and the whispers followed me like shadows. I was used to it. The quiet "that's him" under someone's breath. The way people watched athletes like we were larger than life, as if we bled glory instead of blood. But this wasn't the field. And I wasn't here to give anyone an autograph. I was here for Rocco, and nothing about that felt legendary. The second I stepped into his room, my stomach twisted into a knot so sharp it felt like it might tear me in half, the kind of sick, desperate lurch that surges up into your throat and makes it impossible to breathe right. My chest ached with that awful, hollow pressure, as if my body was trying to reject what my brain already knew, as if some part of me believed, stupidly, that if I shut my eyes and turned around fast enough, I might find him back on the field again. He'd be grinning, mud on his teeth, flipping me off for passing late. Alive, in that loud, reckless way that made you think he could never be brought down. But no, he was here. And here meant strapped to a bed in a white-walled room that smelled like antiseptic and grief. Tubes trailed from his mouth, curling and tangling over his chest, like someone had tried to shove an octopus down his throat and just left it there. Machines crowded around him, blinking and hissing in a steady rhythm, their sounds merging into a strange, mechanical heartbeat that didn't belong to him. Bandages covered nearly every inch of him. Pale strips of gauze crisscrossing over skin I used to see flexing under pads, arms and legs held aloft in slings, like he'd been pieced together with string and tape, and yet somehow was still coming apart in front of me. And his face. God, his face. It was the worst thing I'd ever seen, and I couldn't look away. I couldn't even see his eyes, just layer after layer of gauze wrapped around his head like they were trying to erase who he was, hide it, protect us from the damage, or protect him from being seen. I didn't know, but the worst part, the part I couldn't stop hearing even after I shut the door behind me and tried to breathe through my nose, was the sound. That freaking breathing, wheezing, rattling, like coins in a dryer, metal hitting metal, over and over and over again. He sounded like he was trying to fight to stay alive but didn't know what for anymore, and I hated that I couldn't do anything except stand there in my stupid jacket with North Shore wolves across my chest like that meant something, like it mattered, like any of it mattered when Jace was laying here like this. "Oh," a voice said behind me, sharp and cool like the snap of heels on tile. I turned, pulse thudding in my throat. Bianca Morello stood in the doorway, dressed to the nines as always. Black three-piece suit, sleek heels, a tight dress that probably cost more than my entire tuition, and a hat large enough to cast a full shadow over her face. Her black hair was pulled into a severe bun, not a strand out of place. She held a bouquet of white lilies in one hand and moved with the kind of grace that made it impossible to forget who she was. She walked past me like I wasn't even there and laid the flowers carefully on the table beside Rocco's bed. "I wasn't expecting you today," she said. "Sorry," I croaked. My throat was dry. I should have called. "It's fine." She adjusted the hem of her dress, smoothing it down even though it didn't need it. Everything about her was precise, controlled, but her shoulders were stiff, and I caught the way her eyes didn't meet mine. The silence stretched between us, thick with everything that had gone unsaid since the blood hit the concrete. Ever since Nico Varelli put a bullet through Giovanni Morello's skull, nothing had been the same between our families. Bianca was still loyal, to her dead husband, to her son, to the old codes, the kind that said blood for blood, and betrayal didn't get washed out with time. And yet, Rocco was my best friend. Since college. Since long nights training until our legs gave out and crashing on each other's floors with frozen peas taped to our knees. We were supposed to make it to the Olympics together. Gold, glory, brotherhood. Now he was barely breathing, and I was standing here, the enemy in a jacket with Varelli colors stitched into the lining. "How's he doing?" I asked, but I noticed the second I stepped closer, she flinched, barely, but enough to see it, enough to feel it in the air. "How do you think he's doing?" she snapped. "How would you feel if you broke every bone in your body?" "I'm not here to fight," I said, not even looking at her. My eyes stayed on Rocco. He doesn't like when we fight. From the corner of my eye, I saw her jaw tighten, her hands curling into fists at her sides, white-knuckled rage in a woman who never let anything slip. Like I'd ever do what a Varelli wants me to do, she spat. I might not know everything, but I know he was close to beating you for the top spot on the team. And then suddenly, my gut lurched at the accusation, that sour twist of guilt and frustration bubbling up again. I'd heard it before, too many times, in whispers, after practice, behind locker doors, in the silence that followed when I walked into a room and the conversation died. The team captain, skipper, the one who led the Olympic pipeline squad. It was Rocco or me. Everyone knew it. Coach hadn't said it aloud yet, but the tension had been building for months. Rocco had the speed. I had the discipline. He had the crowd. I had the name. And now he had broken ribs, a fractured spine, and a ventilator doing all the work for him. And I had the jacket. I smiled even though my eyes were burning. You know I would never. I know you would never, she snapped, cutting me off. But what about the rest of your screwed-up family? The Varellis climb so high, and even when they reach the heavens, they're not satisfied. They always want more, always need more. Until someone like my son ends up in a hospital bed, barely recognizable. Her voice cracked on the last word, and that cut deeper than anything else. Now get out, she said coldly, turning away. I'll tell Rocco you visited. I swallowed hard, the words I wanted to say shriveling somewhere behind my teeth. There was nothing I could offer her that wouldn't sound hollow. So I left, and the door felt heavier behind me than it ever had before. As soon as I stepped out of the hospital and slid into my car, the weight hit me all at once. I wept. Silent, ugly, uncontrollable. My forehead against the steering wheel, my chest heaving like I was drowning in it. The fear, the blistering ache of seeing Rocco like that, torn up, wired into machines, barely hanging on, it would never leave me. It carved itself into the back of my skull like something permanent. And it wasn't like she was wrong. My family was screwed up, twisted beyond repair, power-hungry, legacy-obsessed, addicted to status like it was oxygen. Now that Julia was gone and Don was running things, I knew it would never stop. Not in this lifetime, not in the next. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand and glanced at the screen. Don Varelli. My stomach dropped. My fingers curled around the phone but didn't answer. Number not again. I hit the power button, shut it off without thinking. My thumb lingered on the screen longer than it needed to. I knew. Deep down, I knew what he did to Rocco. And for what? For me to be the first Varelli to make it to the goddamn Olympics? The thought made me sick. I clenched the wheel, jammed the key into the ignition, and the Bugatti roared to life. I didn't think. I just drove. Peeled out of the parking lot like I could outrun the weight pressing down on my chest. Straight back to the dorms. Back to the one place I didn't want to be. And the one person I didn't want to face. The second I opened the door, I spotted him. Gabriele, sprawled on the couch in a pair of gray sweats, legs kicked up like he owned the place, blonde hair damp and stuck to his forehead. He was watching TV like he didn't have a care in the world. He didn't even glance at me. And I sure as hell didn't look at him. That is, until I saw it. That same stupid pride flag magnet I'd crushed and tossed in the trash staring back at me from the fridge like nothing had happened. What the hell? I slammed the door harder than necessary, jaw clenching. My fingers twitched with the urge to rip the thing down again, but I stopped myself, just barely. No trash in the house, I muttered coldly, flicking my fingers at the fridge, especially not those tacky-ass flags. Then see yourself out, Gabriele said from the couch, still not looking at me. I froze, whirled. What did you say? You heard me. He turned the volume down on the TV with the remote like I wasn't even worth his full attention. Look, if you got a problem with me, fine, but don't destroy my crap. I live here too, and if you damage my property again, I'll report you. Yeah? To who? I snapped. The superintendent, the dean, Coach Novak, take your pick, he said without blinking. I scoffed. Screw you, pansy ass. Yeah, well, I get in more hits than you on the field, so who's the real witch? I stormed across the room. You want to say that again? He stood now, slowly, and even though he was at least a head shorter, he didn't back down. Not even a little. His eyes stayed locked on mine, jaw set, arms loose at his sides like he wasn't scared. Like he shouldn't be. That only made it worse. Say it again, I growled, stepping into his space. See what happens. Go ahead, he said. Hit me. Then tell Coach why his new starting fly half has a broken jaw. My fists clenched. Everything in me was screaming to grab him by the collar, slam him into the fridge, wipe that bored look off his face. But he just stared, calm, unmoved, and I hated how much that rattled me. We were nose to nose now, breath tangled, and I was ready to throw hands, ready to end this. But then I saw it. His eyes, hazel with little flecks of green and gold like broken glass catching light, and his lips were parted just slightly, like he'd been about to say something else, or maybe breathe something out. I don't know. He was so freaking short, but he was hot, actually. My brain short-circuited for a second, something twisting low in my gut like I'd been sucker-punched. What the hell was wrong with me? I backed up immediately, too fast, like the contact burned. My jaw worked, grinding against the embarrassment, the fury, the confusion. Stay out of my way, I barked. Then I turned, slammed the door behind me so hard the whole damn frame rattled. And even as I stormed to my room, heart hammering like I'd just run a goddamn mile, I could still see his face. Those eyes. That mouth. That look. Damn it. This was not happening. I paced my room like something cornered. Each step too fast, my hands buried in my hair until my scalp ached. My breath came in shallow bursts, rattling in my chest, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the image of him. It was burned into my vision, an after-image I couldn't blink away, cruel and unyielding. He shouldn't be here. Gabriele shouldn't be here. Not on my team, not standing in Jace's hospital room, and definitely not lodged in my head like a splinter I couldn't pull free. The moment I'd looked at him, really looked, I knew something was off. It wasn't just the stupid flag magnet on his locker, or the way he talked back like he had nothing to lose, or how he didn't so much as flinch when I threatened to hit him. It was deeper than that. It was the way he made me feel like I was standing at the very edge of something dangerous, something that pulled at me, and that one more step would send me falling into a place I'd never climb out of. And that was the real problem. It would be Rocco all over again. That night. That stupid night. The drinks. The heavy silence between us. The strange closeness that comes when two people are pretending they aren't falling apart. I told myself it had meant nothing. I told myself I'd forgotten it. I told myself he had too. But the way Gabriele looked at me, it cut through those lies, scraping at something raw and real I had buried so deep I thought it had rotted away. It hadn't, not even close, and now he's here, and I can't breathe right, and I can't sleep, and my thoughts feel like they've been hijacked. Every time I see him, my skin pulls tight with something I don't dare name, because in my family, this kind of thing isn't just shame, it's danger. The Varellis don't bend, they don't break, they erase whatever doesn't fit. And Don would never let this stand. So I have to get Gabriele out, whatever it takes, because if he stays, then the walls I've built will crack, and I won't be able to pretend anymore. And pretending is the only thing that's kept me alive. Chapter 5. Emilio. I'd been watching him all week, the way he moved through practice like he owned the place, stealing glances from Caleb, laughing too easy, acting like he belonged, like he had a right to be here. But this is my team, my turf, my legacy, and Gabriele, a threat, a mistake waiting to happen. Rocco should have been wearing his jersey number, and the more I thought about it, the more it just didn't sit right with me. "Hey," I said, jogging over to Gavin. "What do you know about the new guy?" "I don't know. He's a shrimp," Gavin shrugged, then laughed at something Mike said. "No, I mean, after everything that happened with Rocco, what do we know about his stats? How'd he make the team halfway through the year? Where's he from? I don't know, man, Gavin huffed. What, you want to date him? Ask him. Screw you, I huffed, walking away. And he laughed, grabbing my shoulder. I'm not kidding around, Gavin. The guy's trouble. I want him off the team. We don't have the luxury, man, Gavin said, scratching his bald head. Look, Coach said we don't have much time. The games start next week, so whatever your beef with him is, figure it out now, or we all suffer. I didn't answer. Instead, I turned toward the field, where the team was already lining up for scrimmage. My eyes locked on Gabriele, standing a few yards away, looking calm. Maybe too calm. The whistle blew, and I charged. The moment he caught the ball, I slammed into him hard, testing every inch of his strength, his grit. My shoulder drove into his chest, sending us both crashing into the turf. He hit the ground, but bounced back quickly, glaring up at me like he wasn't about to break any time soon. Good. Then we'd see how long that lasted. I jogged back to the center of the field, heart hammering in my chest. My eyes swept the team. Faces hardened, muscles coiled like springs. This wasn't just a hit, it was a statement. I raised my arm to signal the call. Line out. In an instant, the guys shifted into position, the formation tightening with the precision of a well-oiled machine. The forwards dropped low, locking into a scrum stance, their shoulders braced and muscles coiled, ready to drive, while the backs fanned out across the field, eyes locked ahead, reading the space for the break. The ball came into the scrum with a clean strike, and I bellowed, "Push!" The forwards dug their cleats deep into the turf, legs churning, every ounce of strength surging through the line as we drove forward in unison, grinding the distance down, closing in on Gabriele. "Hold the line," I barked, positioning myself on the flank, eyes fixed. As soon as Gabriele caught the ball near the breakdown, I barked, "Tackle him low. Don't let him off the hook." The back line surged forward, Caleb, Mike, and Gavin closing in fast. Caleb edged ahead, body angled to block Gabriele's path, while Mike readied to wrap him up. Gabriele darted, but our line held firm, tightening like a vice. I saw my moment and charged, shoulder braced low. Hit him hard. Drive through. We collided with the force of a freight train. Gabriele went down, the turf exploding beneath us. The sound of the impact echoed, a harsh punctuation mark to our coordinated assault. The rest of the team circled, scrambling to the breakdown, eyes wild and ready for the ruck. Coach Novak's whistle pierced the air. What the hell was that? We froze, chests heaving, muscles taut. Novak's eyes flicked from me to Gabriele, reading the raw challenge laid bare between us. "Emilio," he growled, stepping closer. "This isn't a vendetta. It's rugby. You're here to build a team, not tear it apart." I swallowed hard, the words sinking in, but my jaw clenched. Gabriele wasn't broken yet, and I wasn't done testing him. The locker room felt electric post-practice energy, cleats clattering against the tile, the hiss of showers starting up, the ripe stench of sweat, and grass hanging in the air like fog. I yanked off my jersey and tossed it to the bench, jaw tight, heart still hammering from the scrimmage. We'd made our point. Or at least I thought we had, until I saw Gabriele. There he was, again, leaning against the lockers, grinning like nothing happened, talking with Caleb, my teammate, my number 8, and laughing like they'd just won the whole damn championship together. Gabriele's cheeks were flushed, hair damp with sweat and sticking to his forehead, mouth still twisted in a smirk like he wasn't sitting on borrowed time. I stalked over, towel slung around my neck, muscles tense. "Stay away from the ferry, guys," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The room went quiet. Caleb's brows shot up. "Excuse me?" Gabriele didn't move. He turned slowly, eyes meeting mine head on, like he'd been expecting this. That made it worse. Made me feel like he knew something I didn't. I sneered. "I'm serious. Don't let his sweet little smile fool you. I've seen what he puts on his fridge." A few of the guys chuckled uncomfortably. Caleb didn't. "Are you done?" Caleb asked flatly. "I will be, when Coach finally figures out what kind of charity case he led onto this team." Gabriele stepped forward then, chest rising and falling fast, but his voice was steady. "You know, for a captain, you're obsessed with someone you think doesn't belong here." I laughed in his face. "You're damn right I am. Because this?" I waved a hand around. "This isn't some high school pride parade. This is elite-level rugby. Real crap. And I'm not going to let some imposter ruin our season just because he plays the victim well." "You mean the way you're playing the tyrant?" Gabriele shot back. The air crackled. Gavin stood and even Mike straightened from his locker. "You'd better back off," I warned, stepping in close. "You have no idea who I am." "No," he said, eyes narrowing, "but I'm starting to figure out exactly what kind of man you are." That landed like a punch. I stared at him for a long second, fists clenching so tight my knuckles went white. Then I turned, slammed my locker shut, and stormed out, the door banging hard behind me. But his voice followed me, clear as day. "I'm not going anywhere." I stormed out of the locker room, shoving past the double doors as they banged open and rattled behind me. The air outside was thick, heavy, the clouds darkening like they could sense the storm brewing in my chest. My keys jangled in my grip as I stalked toward the lot, heat still crawling up the back of my neck. "I'm not going anywhere," his voice echoed in my head, clear as a bell. Arrogant, defiant, like he had a right to anything on this team. I clicked the unlock button, but before I could reach my Bugatti, a sleek black SUV cut across the entrance. Then another. Then a third. Damn it. I stopped cold as the doors opened in unison, men in dark suits stepping out like a coordinated unit. They didn't rush me. They didn't need to. That kind of calm meant only one thing: Don. "Emilio," a voice called smoothly from the left, slithering under my skin. I turned my head and sighed, long and hard. Amadeo. He was worse than Nico, because where Nico was a rabid dog on a leash, Amadeo was a scalpel, silent, deliberate, and unshakably loyal to the Virelli Empire. His skin was sun-warmed bronze, his black curls unruly, framing his face with deceptive charm. And his smile, that knife's edge smile, had only one purpose: to cut deep. "I don't have time for this," I muttered and kept walking. His grip clamped around my arm like iron. "Get the hell off me," I started, but the world spun. Amadeo twisted me around, slamming me face first against the hood of my car. "What the hell? Get off." His lips brushed my ear like a threat wrapped in silk. "Do you want me to break your arm?" he whispered, his knee pressed into the back of mine. "Because you will never play again." Pain pulsed up my shoulder as he cranked it higher, and my mind exploded with white heat. "Don is requesting your presence, now." "I don't have anything to say to him," I growled. My face scraped against the car's glossy surface. "I told you, I'm done." "You'll speak to him," Amadeo interrupted. "Unless you don't want Rocco to last the night." The words slid down my spine like ice. My stomach bottomed out, twisting violently. What did you say?" He let go. I stumbled back, hand gripping my shoulder, breath shallow. "That wasn't a threat," he said coolly. "That was a clock ticking." My pulse thudded in my ears. I'd wanted to stay away, to cut ties, to pretend I could live without the family. But no matter how far I ran, Don always pulled the strings. And this string, it was wound around Rocco's neck. Amadeo opened the back door of the SUV and gestured inside like a concierge. "You coming, Captain?" A flight to New York, and 6 cups of coffee later, the SUV moved like a hearse through the hills. Windows tinted so dark, the outside world blurred into shadow. My shoulder ached where Amadeo had twisted it, but I kept my face blank, eyes locked on the road ahead like I wasn't about to walk into a goddamn tomb. The gravel changed under the tires, crunching louder. We were here. Casa Virelli. The mansion loomed like a carcass on the cliffside, all edges and unforgiving angles. It wasn't built for comfort. It was built for intimidation. Ancient stone walls rose high above wrought iron gates, topped with barbed spears twisted into snarling wolf heads. The windows glared down like watchful eyes, black and empty, and I swear I could feel them move. The front doors groaned open without a sound from me. I stepped inside. The air changed immediately. Cool, dry, metallic. Blood and old money clung to the marble like it had seeped into the grout over generations. My boots echoed through the grand foyer as I moved toward the main chamber. Shadows danced across the vaulted ceiling, climbing the walls like they were alive, curling around tapestries and relics from wars that had nothing to do with me, yet everything to do with who I was. The throne room swallowed me whole. At the far end stood Don Varelli's seat, the throne. A grotesque piece of art carved from solid onyx, flanked on either side by snarling wolves, their fangs bared, their heads frozen in mid-snarl. Their eyes were rubies, real ones, that gleamed like they were hungry. The chair sat on a raised dais, making sure anyone who entered had to look up at him. I shivered. I hated this place. It was the site of too many whispered threats, too many executions dressed up as family dinners. Don Varelli had once massacred an entire family over a bad shipment of weapons. Men, women, children, wiped clean from the earth like they were nothing. And now I stood beneath his shadow again. The man himself emerged from the darkness like he'd been waiting. Tall, broad, his slicked back hair the color of oil. His tailored suit clung to him like armor. His face was all judgment, and when he smiled, it never reached his eyes. "Emilio," Don said, his voice cold as a tomb, "you've been ignoring my calls." I swallowed hard. "Just been busy with practice." He chuckled, a low, dry sound that made my skin crawl. "Of course," he said, gesturing to the wolves. "But even wolves come when the alpha howls, see?" My throat tightened. "Why am I here?" Don turned slightly, fingers resting on the head of one of the carved beasts. "I hear you're having trouble with a new player. Gabriele, is it?" The blood in my veins iced over. I said nothing. Don smiled wider. "You see, Emilio, when I put you on that team, I expected leadership. I expected control, not questions, not hesitation." He stepped down, one polished shoe at a time, and certainly not sentiment. My spine stiffened, breath shallow. "Rocco," I started. "Rocco is alive because I allowed him to be." Don's voice cracked across the marble like a whip. "Don't mistake survival for mercy." He closed the distance, placing a heavy hand on my shoulder. "You will find out everything there is to know about this Gabriele. And if he's who we suspect he is, you end it." A pause. No emotion, just command. "You end everything."
Chapter 6. Gabriele. Jesus, what the hell is his problem? Caleb muttered beside me as Emilio stormed off across the field like the turf personally offended him. I shrugged, wiping sweat off my brow. No idea. He must be drunk. Or high. Or both. "Rabid," Caleb said, grinning. "Like a feral dog someone forgot to put down." That got a laugh out of me, short and dry. I was still buzzing with leftover adrenaline, trying to make sense of whatever vendetta Emilio Varelli had strapped to his cleats. We walked side by side toward the benches, cleats crunching against the turf, the setting sun throwing long shadows across the field. I tried not to think too hard about the bruise blooming on my ribs, or the way Emilio had zeroed in on me like I'd kicked his dog in a past life. "I'm serious, though," Caleb added, glancing sideways. "Dude's been breathing down your neck since day one. You must have pissed in his protein shake or something." "Must have," I snorted, grabbing my water bottle. There was a beat of quiet between us, the kind that didn't feel awkward, just curious. When I looked over, Caleb was watching me, not in the usual locker room bro kind of way. His gaze dipped, not subtle, and then flicked back up, to my lips. I blinked. "Want to grab a drink later?" he asked, smiling, casual as anything. And just like that, my brain stumbled. It hadn't even crossed my mind before, that Caleb might not be as straight as he'd advertised. He had the shaggy brown hair, The frat boy build, the easy charisma. But there was a softness in the way he looked at me. Not quite hunger, more like invitation. I looked away too fast. "Sure," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral, the words slipping out before I could second-guess it. If I had to pick an animal for him, it would be a ferret. Lean, quick, restless, always watching. The kind of guy who'd steal your watch and make you laugh while doing it. But something in my gut warned me. He was also the kind that played games. And if Emilio's sudden jealousy was anything to go by, this one was about to get messy. I found myself agreeing before I could think, and somehow we made plans to meet at the Foxhole, a pub somewhere downtown. I hadn't had a chance to explore the city much yet. Hadn't had time to breathe, honestly. But a night out with Caleb before the big game sounded like exactly what I needed. Something normal. Something easy. Something not tangled in lies, blood, or the Varelli name. I left practice and headed straight back to the dorms, the locker room long behind me. I didn't bother sticking around. I knew what came next. Guys talking crap, laughing, slapping towels at each other's asses like it was high school all over again. Only this time, I wasn't just the new guy. I was that guy. The one Emilio Varelli decided to turn into a punching bag. I slammed the door behind me and stripped off my gear, stepping into the dorm's private bathroom. The water hit my back hard, and I let it scald my skin, trying to rinse off the weight that had built up over the last week. I knew it was stupid, but after that jackass outed me on the field, I didn't feel comfortable showering with the other guys. Not because I was ashamed, never that, but because I didn't trust them not to try something, not to turn it into a joke, not to corner me like Emilio did. What a bastard. I gritted my teeth, the water thundering down around me like it could drown the memory of his voice, his eyes, the way he looked at me like I was some kind of threat and not just another player on the team. Like my very existence offended him. I slammed the faucet off and stepped out, grabbing a towel. Screw him, screw all of it. Tonight, I was going out. I was going to have a drink, maybe two. I'd laugh, flirt, pretend I was just another college guy on a rugby scholarship with a teammate who wanted to hang out. Nothing more. Nothing less. I pulled on a black t-shirt and jeans, ran my fingers through my still damp hair, and stared at myself in the mirror for a second too long. "You've got this," I told myself, and maybe, for once, I believed it. My thoughts drifted, uninvited, back to Emilio. God, why? My face flushed hot, and I gripped the edge of the sink tighter. He was a dick, a grade A asshole with a superiority complex the size of this entire campus, but he was also, damn it, a handsome bastard. The kind of guy who made you look twice even when you swore you hated him. That long, dark hair, always slightly messy like he just rolled out of bed. Those chocolate brown eyes that somehow managed to look bored and lethal at the same time. And those tattoos, tribal, sharp, weaving like serpents up both his arms, cutting across muscles sculpted by years of pain and practice. He walked like the field belonged to him, like he belonged to it. That kind of arrogance should have made me sick. Instead, the thought of him holding me down, his chest pressed against my back, his voice growling in my ear, was doing things to me I didn't want to admit. I cursed under my breath and turned away from the mirror. Nope, not going there. Not tonight. I shook the thought from my head like water, grabbing my phone and slipping it into my back pocket. Caleb was waiting. I wasn't about to show up late and flustered over some guy who clearly hated my guts. Even if that guy had arms, I wanted wrapped around me, and a mouth that could ruin a man. One drink, maybe two. Just enough to forget. And maybe, just maybe, enough to stop wondering what it would feel like if Emilio looked at me like he wanted me, instead of like he wanted me gone. I hugged my worn leather jacket closer as I reached the Foxhole. The place was already buzzing. Strings of yellow lights stretched across the patio, people laughing, talking too loud over the indie band strumming in the corner. Music drifted through the air, mellow and a little sad. I took a slow breath, letting the noise drown out the anxiety crawling beneath my skin. I spotted Caleb almost immediately. Impossible to miss him, really. Standing a head taller than most of the crowd. Messy brown curls pushed back from his forehead. Broad shoulders relaxed like he owned the place. like a ferret that accidentally fell into a modeling contract. I ran a hand through my damp blonde hair as I walked over. He caught sight of me and lifted a beer in greeting. "Your hair's still wet," he said with a crooked grin. "Oh. Yeah." I flushed, rubbing the back of my neck. Didn't really feel like showering with the guys after today. Caleb handed me the bottle. "No problem. Figured you were a beer kind of guy." He was all teeth and confidence, that charming grin you couldn't help but like, even if you didn't want to. "So?" He leaned in slightly. I stiffened, just barely. "What do you do around here besides train? Where are you from?" I hurried to ask. "Damn," he chuckled, noticing. "At least let me drink before we get into the Spanish Inquisition." That made me laugh, enough to ease the tension in my chest. He took a long pull from his drink, his gaze scanning the crowd lazily. "I'm from Montana," he added casually. "Family's back east now. I was the best they had for years. Then I got recruited. East Side Wolves are no joke, one of the best teams in the state." I nodded, gripping my bottle tighter. "Sounds like you were kind of a big deal." He shrugged. "Still am. Don't let the pretty face fool you." I smiled but didn't answer his question. Where was I from? I could still hear the sound of my mother's screams, the crowbar slamming against wet flesh, the metallic tang of blood in the air, thick and cloying, the smell of burning wood and cigar smoke. That voice, cruel, like it lived in my bones. Find him, follow him, report back to me. I had to choke back the memory before it surfaced, before it overwhelmed everything. I drained the rest of my beer in one go, the glass sweating between my fingers, knuckles turning white around the bottle's neck. Caleb's brow furrowed slightly. "You good?" "Yeah," I said too quickly, blinking away the darkness. "Just thirsty." He didn't push, just leaned back, eyes still on me like he was trying to figure me out. I looked away, pretending to study the band, pretending I was just another guy here for a drink and not someone running from a family who would skin me alive if they knew I'd even thought about kissing Emilio Varelli. My father, Coach Novak, told me flat out that talent wasn't enough. "You have to bleed for this team." I believed him. I still do. I'm not just here to play. I want the Olympics. I want it all. There was something infectious about the way he said it, like chasing glory was a religion, and he was the last believer. I opened my mouth to respond, but the sudden shift in the room stole the words from my throat. A hush fell, followed by a low murmur, then a ripple of snickers that moved like a wave down the length of the bar. I twisted in my seat, and felt my stomach twist too. There he was, Emilio, wrapped around some girl like a freaking Armani ad, his varsity jacket thrown over his shoulder like he didn't even care how smug he looked. The girl under his arm was laughing, one hand playing with his collar, while another loomed in front of him, clearly seething. Blonde, blue eyes, legs for days, and fury radiating off her like a heat wave. "Who's this trash you picked up?" she snapped, loud enough for half the bar to hear. "You won't give me an answer from where we stand and suddenly you're all over some bimbo?" Emilio just tilted his head. "Because this is my answer." He said the words like she was the last to know. The crowd winced. Some snorted. Others chuckled cruelly. Damn, I thought. That was cold. Her face turned bright red. "You son of a bitch." "All right, knock it off, Aurelia," Gavin rumbled from behind Emilio, his bald head glinting under the bar lights like a polished wrecking ball. "He's not interested in your brand of crazy." Aurelia's jaw clenched. Her hands shook as one of her friends gently tugged at her arm. "Come on, girl," she whispered. "Don't debase yourself for him." They pulled her away, her heels clacking angrily against the hardwood floor, tears in her eyes and hatred carved into her expression. Caleb snorted beside me. "Assholes," he muttered. "All of them." "You know her?" I asked, eyes still stuck on Emilio like he was a car crash I couldn't look away from. "Yeah, that's Aurelia Marino, one of the best swimmers in the world." He took a swig of beer. "And I have no idea what she sees in that jockstrap. He's been leading her on for years. He's pathetic." "What did you say about me?" a voice said behind us. I turned just in time to see Emilio's head lift, his eyes boring straight into ours. There was a lazy curl to his lip, like he was daring someone, anyone, to say it again. Caleb stiffened beside me, his jaw ticking. I could feel the tension climb up my spine like a wire pulled taut. The air in the room shifted. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, heavy and fast. Emilio was behind us, close, too close. His reflection appeared in the mirror above the bar, his tribal tattoos twisting down his arms like they had minds of their own. He looked like a man pulled straight out of war. He took a step closer, and I felt his breath on my neck. Caleb kept his eyes forward, but his fingers tightened around the bottle. "Didn't quite catch that," Emilio whispered. "You want to say it again? Real slow?" Caleb turned, lifting one shoulder in that easy shrug he always wore like armor. "Just saying what everyone's thinking, man." Emilio's lip curled into a half smile, no humor in it. "Is that right?" His eyes didn't move off Caleb, but I knew they were burning through me too. "Funny. I don't remember anyone asking you." I felt it brewing, whatever this was, whatever had been simmering since the scrimmage, ready to explode. Caleb turned fully, eyes hard. "You gonna swing at me? Go ahead. Let the whole bar see what a man you are." My stomach dropped. Damn it. The smell coming off Emilio hit me before he even opened his mouth. Thick with booze, like he'd crawled into a barrel of beer and decided to build a new life there. He was completely wasted, his steps loose, swaggering with the kind of reckless confidence only someone like him could wear so comfortably. "All right, take it easy," I said, already bracing myself. "What did you say, shorty?" he snapped, slurring the word with a sneer as his bleary eyes settled on me. Then he turned to Caleb, eyes lighting up with mock delight. "Oh, isn't this cute? A date, huh? Why didn't you say so, Caleb?" He threw an arm around Caleb's neck like they were old buddies, but there was nothing friendly in the grip. Too tight, too possessive. "So, who's the top? Don't tell me Caleb's a screaming bottom." My fists clenched as my spine straightened. I said, "Knock it off." "Or else what?" he drawled, almost amused, but I could see the edge sharpening beneath it. "I'll flatten you on your back," I said evenly, every muscle in my body wound tight. He stared down at me, expression darkening, and then he scoffed, eyes glinting with contempt. "You freaking shrimp couldn't do anything." But I moved before he could finish the thought. Ducking low, I swept my leg around, fast and hard, and felt the satisfying contact as his legs gave out from under him. He went down like a slab of concrete, hitting the floor with a dull, echoing thud that made the entire bar pause for breath. Gasps cut through the music. Someone laughed and bottles clinked in the background like punctuation marks. I straightened slowly, fists still raised, slipping back into my jujitsu stance as my heart thundered beneath my ribs like a war drum. Emilio blinked up at me, dazed, his dark hair spilling loose around his face, sticking to the sweat across his brow. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stared like he couldn't believe what just happened. "Well, that escalated quickly," Caleb muttered under his breath. The entire bar erupted, first in stunned silence, then in laughter, loud and raucous, bouncing off the walls like a thunderclap. Chairs scraped, glasses clinked, and somewhere behind me, someone let out a low whistle. Gavin was practically lunging across the room. "Crap, man," he said between cackles, grabbing Emilio's hand to haul him up. Emilio staggered, off balance, shoulders swaying, too drunk to do anything but glare through his hair like a wounded animal. All right, you'll live to fight another day," Gavin said, clapping him hard on the back, clearly enjoying every second of this. Behind the bar, the bartender wiped down a glass and gave Emilio a flat, unimpressed stare. "No fights in the bar, Varelli. I don't care who your daddy is. I'll call the cops. Swear to God." Emilio flipped him off without even looking, jaw clenched so tight his teeth might have cracked. Gavin chuckled and guided him toward the door, both of them weaving slightly as they went. "You'll pay for that later," Caleb muttered beside me, still watching the door swing shut behind them. Then he turned to me, grinning wide. "But damn, that was cool. You went full Jet Li on his ass. Where'd you learn to fight like that?" I gave a small shrug, my pulse finally slowing down. my hands tingling from the contact. Been called short my whole life. You either learn to fight, or you learn to get knocked down. Caleb let out a laugh, full and easy. No truer words, my friend. No truer words. He raised his hand and flagged the bartender. Shots? I snorted. You read my mind. As we leaned against the bar, 2 tiny glasses were slid across to us. Clear liquid that burned just looking at it. Caleb raised his, and I mirrored the gesture. To surviving another day, he said, eyes still twinkling. To being short and dangerous, I added. We clinked the glasses, and the burn down my throat was the best thing I'd felt in days. But even as the warmth settled in my chest, something itched at the back of my mind. I'd just humiliated Emilio Varelli, captain of the team. A Varelli. And the next time he came at me, he wouldn't be drunk. He'd be sober, focused, ready. But tonight, I could breathe. Caleb slowly walked me all the way back to the dorms like he wasn't in a rush to say goodbye. His shoulder kept brushing mine as we moved, casual but deliberate, and every time it did, a jolt went through me. We stopped at my door, the hallway quiet and dim, the hum of the building settling around us. This is me, I said, hand already halfway to the knob. Yeah, he said, voice softer now, eyes flickering to my mouth. Listen. I had fun. I wouldn't mind doing it again sometime. Yeah, me too, I murmured, throat suddenly dry. Caleb smiled, easy and confident. You're cute. I know that's not what every guy wants to hear, but you are cute. Hot, really. Something about you that gets me going. Oh, yeah? I squirmed, the compliment going straight to my chest like a punch. Ha ha ha. What? Why are you looking at me like that? Caleb laughed, leaning in and planting his arm against the doorframe above my head, pinning me there without even touching me. Guess? I licked my lips, and he tracked the motion like a predator, zeroed in. And before I could blink, he kissed me. Quick, cool, and wet, just enough pressure to make my knees unsteady. His breath was hot on my cheek, and then he pulled away. Night Walker? Walker. My stomach dropped. It felt like I'd been hit with a bucket of cold water. That name. Not my real one, but enough. Enough to remind me of what I was doing here, of what I couldn't risk. Christ, what was I doing? I nodded stiffly and backed into the room, heart hammering. Night. Then the door clicked shut between us, but I was already unraveling. Fast. I shut the door and leaned against it, heart still racing. My forehead pressed to the cool wood, breath fogging in and out as I tried to gather myself. Then, God help me, a laugh slipped out. Soft at first, then bubbling, breathless. What the hell was I doing? I was supposed to be spying on Emilio Varelli, feeding intel, keeping my distance, not dating Caleb, not letting myself feel things I couldn't afford. The citrusy tang of his cologne still clung to my clothes. My lips tingled from the kiss, and my chest felt too small for the storm thrashing inside me. The dorm room smelled faintly of old gym socks and that weird lavender cleaning spray Coach insisted on. Familiar, grounding, and yet everything felt off balance. Then there were heavy footsteps behind me, coming in fast. I turned just in time to duck as a fist slammed into the door where my head had been, the impact cracking through the air like a firework. Wood splintered, and my ears rang with the force of it. What the? I scrambled back, breath catching in my throat, pulse jackhammering through my chest. The air behind me shifted, but it was dense and charged with fury. Emilio. I could feel him, smell him. Sweat and liquor clinging to his skin, cut with something more primal. Smoke, salt, heat. A storm barely restrained. You think this is a freaking game? He snarled. You think you can just show up and steal what doesn't belong to you? I didn't steal anything. His punch came fast. I ducked the first, caught the second across my shoulder. Pain bloomed through my arm, but I didn't back down. I struck back, A hook to his ribs, an elbow up toward his jaw. My fists landed, solid hits that should have staggered him. But Emilio was a freaking tank. He growled, eyes blazing, grabbing my shirt and slamming me into the granite countertop. My back arched from the impact, breath knocked out of me. The edge of the counter dug into my spine as he pressed forward, pinning me with brutal force. His face was inches from mine, eyes burning gold, lips curled back like a wild animal, his breath hot and ragged, teeth bared, foam at the edge of his mouth. And then he kissed me. A savage, punishing crash of lips against mine. I gasped, the sound torn from my throat in shock. His mouth was everywhere, fierce, greedy, devouring me like I was his last breath of air. I shoved at his chest, but he grabbed the back of my neck, teeth dragging across my bottom lip before biting down hard enough to make me gasp again. It was an invasion, a warning, a claim, and somehow my body betrayed me. Because I kissed him back. Heat exploded in my gut, my hands fisted in his shirt, our teeth clicked, mouths clashing, and it was messy and wrong and, God help me, I wanted more. We broke apart, both of us gasping. His forehead pressed to mine, both of us trembling, chest to chest, sweat, heat, hate, and something else. Something that made my whole world tilt sideways. Chapter 7. Gabriele. Emilio kissed me like he was trying to set me on fire, with teeth, tongue, and too much heat, all anger and possession wrapped in one brutal, breathless moment. It wasn't soft. It wasn't sweet. It was a collision, a punishment, a demand I couldn't deny. Then suddenly, he ripped away. His breath came fast, chest heaving, flushed and wild-eyed, like he couldn't decide if he wanted to kiss me again or kill me where I stood. He shoved me off, muttered something I couldn't hear, and staggered back into his room, the door slamming shut behind him like a gunshot in the dark. And I was just standing there, heart pounding, lips bruised, soaked in confusion and the ghost of his mouth on mine. What the hell just happened? And why the hell did I want it to happen again? I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, my breath coming out in heavy, uneven pants. The kiss with Caleb flashed behind my eyes, cool and sweet, like the brush of wind on water. Then Emilio. That kiss hadn't just touched me. It tore into me, raw and rabid like being pried open from the inside out. One was sugar, the other was fire, and I hated them both. No, that wasn't right. I wanted them both. Emilio Varelli, captain of the rugby team, closet case. I almost laughed out loud. The very idea of him being into me was inconceivable, and yet, it was the perfect weapon. My hand slid over my chest as I sucked in another breath, skin still burning from his touch. I could use this. Him. If I played it right. My drawer buzzed. The sound alone turned my blood to ice. The burner phone. No name, no number. Just the pulsing red light of a leash around my throat. I grabbed it with fingers that wouldn't stop shaking. "Are you alone?" came the voice, oily and slick, like a knife in the dark. Enzo. "Yes," I gritted out. "What did you find out?" "Nothing yet," I hissed. "It's only been a week or so." "That's not good enough." The sound of a lighter flicked through the speaker, the hiss of flame, the long inhale of smoke filling his lungs like a serpent tasting the air. "Bring me information on Emilio Varelli, or else your mother won't live to see the sunrise." A cold fury snapped in me. "Do you think I care about her?" I wanted him to believe it, needed him to. "You can do what you want with her." But we both knew I was lying. Enzo chuckled. "That's the Costilio fire. Sharp tongue. No loyalty. You really are your father's little monster." He paused. "But my motto isn't like yours. Mine was written in blood and bone. I will carve it into your life until you remember it every time you breathe." I said nothing. "I'll rip out her throat if I call you again, and your answer is, I don't know." The line went dead. I stayed lying there, heart thudding in the pit of my stomach like a body sinking in a river. I woke up groggy, the night before barely a memory, sleep swallowed whole by nerves and the weight of everything spinning in my head. Training had been brutal. Tackles pounding like thunder, sprints that burned my lungs raw, and drills that tested every fiber of my being. Caleb caught my eye as I walked into the locker room, his smile easy and genuine. I couldn't quite meet his gaze, the realization hitting me like a gut punch. He liked me. That our stupid little date wasn't just a one-off, but the start of something. Christ. I swallowed hard, the weight of it settling in as I shuffled over to my locker. I started pulling on my gear, the shoulder pads, the tight scrum cap, cleats laced up tight, and the jersey with my number pressed against my skin. Every piece felt heavier today, like I was suiting up for more than just a game. All right, listen up. His gaze swept over us, steel in his eyes. This is the first game of the season. We win this, and we pave the way to the Olympics. Coach Novak paused, letting the words sink in. This is our chance to show the league what North Shore Wolves are made of. I want perfect lineouts, relentless rucks, and clean mauls. No sloppy passes, no missed tackles. Remember, this isn't just a scrimmage. It's a test of our cohesion, our heart, and our will to dominate. You carry the team. You don't just play for yourself. His fist slammed into his palm. Get out there, hit hard, play smart, and leave everything on that pitch. I closed my eyes for a moment, feeling the familiar buzz of adrenaline starting to rise. The roar of the crowd was waiting, and deep down, so was the fight. All right, let's do this. Emilio stepped forward, taking over from Coach Novak. The room snapped to attention. Who are we? He demanded. Wolves! The squad roared back in unison, fists pounding lockers and chests. That's right, Emilio said, a slow grin creeping onto his face. We're the North Shore Wolves. We hunt together. We fight together. Every ruck, every maul, every tackle, leave it all out there. He pointed to the fly half. Smith, you're calling the shots. Keep those passes tight. Watch the blind side. Jones, flank hard. Take down their ball carriers before they get breathing room. And the pack, hookers, props, locks. This is your house. Own the scrum like it's your last breath. Push them back. Control the set piece. This game's not just about skill. It's about heart, grit, and refusing to back down. Make them remember who owns this field. The locker room erupted again, the Wolves ready to tear through the season. But when Emilio's eyes landed on me, I saw them gleam with something else. Something vicious. You'll pay for that. Caleb's voice echoed in my mind, and I knew it was true. Emilio had kissed me last night, and I had a sinking feeling he was going to make me regret it. The bus rumbled steadily as it wound its way through the outskirts of the city, the sun barely risen and casting a pale light across the cracked pavement. I sat pressed against the window, the cold glass fogging where my breath hit it, eyes tracing the blur of trees and buildings sliding past. Around me, the team joked and shouted, the buzz of nervous energy filling the cramped space, but I barely heard them. Especially not Emilio. His booming laughter and loud stories carried from the front, slicing through the noise like a spotlight. He seemed different here. Focused, sober, confident. The defined lines of his jaw, the easy sway of his shoulders, the way his dark eyes caught the light. It was the Emilio I knew. The captain. The star. But then I thought about that kiss. The raw heat. The furious weight of it. And my throat tightened. I swallowed hard and looked away, focusing on the road ahead. Not now. Too much was riding on this game. Too much was still broken to be dealt with tonight. The whistle blew, slicing through the cold air as we hit the field. My cleats dug into the turf, the rough grass sticking between my toes, damp with early morning dew. The scent of earth and sweat clung heavy around me, the kind of smell that settled deep inside your lungs and made the world taste metallic and alive. The roar of the crowd was a distant hum, swallowed beneath the thud of bodies crashing against each other. I could taste the metallic tang of blood on my lips from a grazed split. My shirt clung to my skin, soaked through with sweat, heavy and suffocating. Every breath I took was harsh, ragged, pulling hot air deep into my lungs that burned with exertion. But something was wrong. The ball never came to me. Passing lanes shut tight, the team froze me out. Like I wasn't even there. I caught Caleb's eye once. He was just as cut off. The sting in my gut tightened, a sinking weight dragging me down. Coach Novak's face was beet red, veins bulging as he screamed from the sidelines, fists clenched tight. But Emilio? He was unbreakable. A god on the field. His every movement was precise and brutal, breaking through tackles like a panther stalking its prey. Around me, bodies crashed in bone-jarring tackles, shirts ripped and stained crimson, grass flying as we fought for every inch. Sweat slicked our skin, blending with the grime of battle, and my hair stuck to my forehead in damp strands. The air was electric with aggression, every grunt and heavy breath a symphony of raw fight. The scoreboard wasn't kind. The points kept climbing against us, the gap widening like a pit. With each plummeting number, my stomach sank further, and the hopelessness seeped in. If we lost this game, if we didn't pull off some miracle, then we could kiss the Olympics goodbye. And all I could do was keep playing, keep fighting, while the team slowly turned their backs on me, like I was already out of the game. Coach Novak's whistle exploded through the noise. "What the hell is going on out there?" he spat, storming toward Emilio. "Gabriele is wide open. Why the hell isn't he getting the ball?" the coach demanded, his voice rising with every word. Emilio wiped sweat from his brow, his shirt clinging to his lean, muscled frame. His eyes darted, but he didn't meet Coach Novak's gaze. "I didn't see him," Emilio lied, but the doubt was plain on his face. "You better see him," Novak snarled. "Listen, this isn't just some game. This is the HSBC Canada Sevens qualifier, our chance to punch through to the Olympics. If we lose this, it's over. No Olympics, no glory. You hear me? We're done." The rest of the team's frustration boiled over. Gavin's jaw clenched so tight I thought it might snap. Mike and Jonas shooting daggers at each other on the sidelines. And then Emilio finally looked up. Emilio's eyes locked on mine for a fraction of a second. His jaw tightened, and with a curt nod, he stepped forward, pushing off the ground like a coiled spring ready to strike. "Who are we?" "Wolves!" everyone shouted back. The line snapped into formation. Gavin at hooker, Mike and Jonas flanking as flankers, Caleb sprinting wide as our speedy winger, and me, locked in at scrum half, ready to control the tempo. The ball was fed in. Emilio surged, bulldozing through the opposing fly half with bone-crushing force. The crowd's roar faded, replaced by the pounding of cleats against turf and ragged breaths. Sweat stung my eyes as I darted around the ruck, spotting Caleb darting down the sideline, begging for a pass. But the forwards kept their heads, driving through heavy tackles, bodies slamming like thunder. Mike's shirt was smeared with blood, Jonas's breath harsh in my ear as we fought for every inch. Time bled away. Minutes ticking down, the score barely in reach. I stole a glance at Emilio, muscles coiled, eyes burning with a savage hunger. He charged again, breaking tackles, dragging defenders like they were rag dolls. "Pass! Pass!" I screamed, heart hammering. The ball hit Caleb's hands. He sprinted, zigzagging past the last defender, but the whistle blew. For a heartbeat, the world stood still. Mud-slick cleats planted, chests heaving, sweat and blood mingling in the air. Coach Novak's voice cracked over the din, but I barely heard it. My eyes locked on the scoreboard. We'd done it. Just barely. The numbers glared back. Wolves, victorious. The floodgates opened. Emilio let out a guttural roar, pounding his chest like a wild beast claiming his territory. The pack erupted around him, fists slapping backs, their voices hoarse from battle and joy. Gavin's grin was wide, wiped blood streaked across his face like war paint. Mike and Jonas high-fived, their breaths ragged but triumphant. Caleb sprinted over, eyes shining, pulling me into a rough embrace. "That was damn near perfect," he said, breathless. I nodded, still trying to process it all, the pain, the sweat, the brutal hits, and the unspoken promise that we weren't done yet. This win was just the beginning. We won, but just barely. The final score blinked across the board, 19-17. 2 points. That was it. A single missed tackle, a fumbled pass, a conversion gone wide, and we would have lost. It didn't feel like the kind of win worth celebrating. More like a bullet we dodged by the skin of our teeth. My chest still heaved as I peeled off my mouthguard, heart punching against my ribs. Around me, The others were coming down from the adrenaline rush. Flushed faces, scraped knees, sweat-soaked jerseys clinging to bruised bodies. Coach Novak stood at the edge of the field, arms crossed, expression unreadable, though the tension in his jaw said everything. This wasn't the crushing victory he'd wanted. This wasn't dominance. It was survival. He clapped his hands once. "All right, pack up, rest up tonight. We've got more games ahead, but you can celebrate." Gavin let out a hoot, throwing his arms around Jonas and Mike. "Do not go crazy," Coach barked, eyes narrowing. "That was not a performance worth getting wasted over. You guys barely scraped through. You want to make it to the Olympics, you're going to have to bleed for it. Earn it." His gaze swept over the team and lingered, just a second too long, on me. Then on Emilio. Then he turned on his heel. "Get out of my sight." The team scattered, laughter echoing behind me, but I didn't move, because winning had never felt so close to losing. And something about the way Emilio watched me made me feel like the real game hadn't even started yet. I didn't plan on going. But somehow, between the exhaustion from the game and Caleb's relentless grin, I ended up in my ragged old leather jacket and a pair of faded jeans that didn't quite fit right anymore, standing on the front steps of someone's mansion-sized suburban house with a solo cup shoved into my hand. "Whose house is this?" I muttered under my breath, leaning toward Caleb. He just grinned, wide and lazy. "Who cares? Booze is free." Then he slung an arm around my shoulder like we were closer than we were. I stiffened beneath the weight of it. A part of me wanted to shrug him off, but I didn't. Not right away. There wasn't anything wrong with Caleb, per se, but he struck me as the kind of guy who thought dating meant locking into a script. Him, the charming jock. Me, the quirky but supportive boyfriend who laughed at his jokes and clung to his arm at every party. I wasn't into that. As soon as we crossed the threshold, music blaring in waves from the living room, I made up some excuse about getting us drinks. He didn't question it. He just kissed the side of my head like we'd been doing this for years and disappeared into the noise. I headed to the kitchen instead. Less crowded, the air easier to breathe. The fridge was already propped open by a case of cheap beer. I grabbed something cold, cracked it open, and drifted through the hall like smoke, ignoring the shout of a game happening in the living room where Gavin was holding court like some kind of beer-slick king, laughing too loudly at his own stories. I sipped my drink slowly, eyes half-lidded, letting the noise fade behind me. I wandered toward the back of the house where a dozen bodies shimmered in the pool, soaked and dancing under blue LED lights. Someone cannonballed off the diving board and shrieks of laughter went up. It was all too loud, too much. I turned back inside, shoulders tight, stepping into a hallway dimly lit by sconces and scattered with framed photos of people I didn't know. I didn't want to go back to Caleb, not yet, maybe not at all. I needed to think. I needed air. But before I could reach the end of the hall, a hand shot out and grabbed my bicep, fingers iron tight, and yanked me into the dark. I barely had time to catch my breath before the door slammed shut behind me. My back hit the wall, the faint scent of dust and detergent wrapping around me, and the shape in the dark pressed in close. Hot breath, wild and heavy. Emilio. His mouth was on mine before I could breathe, before I could think. Hot, rough, desperate. Emilio kissed like a man trying to silence a scream, his or mine, I didn't know. My back hit the wall of the dark closet, the wood cool against my shoulder blades, but all I felt was heat, him. The hard press of his chest, the flex of his arms as they caged me in. "Damn it," I hissed into his mouth, grabbing a fistful of his shirt and dragging him closer, needing to feel something solid. He groaned low, like the sound had been pulled straight from his spine, and I felt it echo in my chest. His hands were everywhere, skating under my shirt, tracing up my ribs, pausing over the scar just beneath my pec like he knew. And then he was moving again, lips dragging down my throat in a frantic blur, tongue catching at my skin. My hands tangled in his hair. I felt him sink to his knees, breath hot against my stomach, lips brushing just above my waistband. I gasped, my head hitting the wall behind me with a dull thud, dizzy from the way my heart was hammering. His hands trembled slightly as they pushed up my shirt, mouthing at my abs like he was starving. "Emilio," I breathed. He didn't look up, just rested his forehead against my stomach for a long second like he was praying. "Don't say anything," he rasped. "Just, please, let me forget for one goddamn second." I didn't answer. I couldn't. My fingers slid into his hair again, gentler this time, and he leaned into it like it hurt. My chest cracked open, and when he looked up, eyes glassy, lips swollen, I knew we were about to cross a line we could never uncross.